Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of Sit Downs with Charlie Brown. I am your host, DJ Charlie Brown, or whatever you know me by, coming at you with a solo episode this time. So today's date is March 1st, 2024, and today I can say the four best words in all of sports: pitchers and catchers report. As many people know, I would normally do this with my good friend Stan, but scheduling issues have left us doing one on my own. However, I promise we'll have time to get him back on here because I know you all love him. I love him. He's a great person, so we will definitely work that out. Now, the only thing to note is at the time of recording this, there are still a handful of guys still not on rosters yet. So if things change, I apologize, because guys like Jordan Montgomery, Blake Snell, and I believe Matt Chapman are still unsigned by teams. So we're going to work with what we got here, and I'm going to offer up some predictions for you guys on how I view this baseball season going. Starting over in the AL East, I have the Orioles as my number one team. This offseason has been a blessing for the Orioles in two big reasons. One is that the Angelos family has finally sold the team to an investor group which is backed by Cal Ripken Jr., a guy who was a legend for the Orioles. Especially now that this is a roster that I think is a championship contending team. You know, Adley Rutschman, Gunnar Henderson, Cedric Mullins, all the guys they have coming up in the wings, including Jackson Holliday. Even better, they finally did what many people have been wanting them to do, and that's draft and go out and get an ace. And Corbin Burnes is that guy realistically, because you're talking about a guy who, while had a bad year last year, was still in the conversation for the NL Cy Young. That is impressive. So the O's are definitely, I feel, the top team in this division. My number two team, I have the Toronto Blue Jays. You know, they weren't immensely active this offseason. Like, I don't even remember a lot of their moves. But I feel like the reason I have them at number two is you have guys like Guerrero Jr., Bo Bichette. You have a great starting pitching, you know, you have a lot of great pieces. I feel the biggest thing is they need to take that next step, and I feel if they don't, it's because this is essentially a do or die year, because last year they made the big mistake pulling Barrios in the wild card game, and look what it got them. So I feel that this is a pivotal year for the Blue Jays, and I think they can get it done, but you know, this next team, I don't know. They can be a very interesting contender for that position. That team would be the Tampa Bay Rays. Now, the reason why I have them in the 3 spot isn't because I think they don't have hitters. You know, they have some good ones on there. They have a lot of young talent. My main concern with them is in pitching, just because McClanahan, Rasmus, Springs, all three of their top guys, they're all dealing with injuries and probably aren't going to pitch either late into the season or at latest next year. So that is a big blow to them. But I do feel they have enough to be sort of middle of the pack this year. So that's where my stance is on them at this point in time. Fourth place, I have the New York Yankees. Now, here's the thing. You may call me a salty Twins fan, but let me give you my point. It is true that, you know, I like the fact they went out and they got Juan Soto, they got Marcus Stroman, they got a lot of other pieces. But what is to still make me believe that the Yankees are going to get anything done outside of this year? Because even with additions, like, it's still a team that just masks up its main focus is centered around Aaron Judge being healthy and Garrett Cole having Cy Young years, which that's not sustainable. You know, I feel that getting Stroman and Soto boosts, I just don't really see it, because I feel like there's a lot of other issues. You know, whether it's they keep burying prospects, Giancarlo Stanton unable to hit off-speed pitches. You know, it's a lot of issues with the Yankees that I feel that they're not addressing, and I feel like they got to, or else the Yankee faithful will not be happy about this. My fifth team in the AL East is sadly the Boston Red Sox. Now, I did think they made some nice moves in getting Liam Hendricks. You know, they got rid of Chris Sales. They did a lot of moves out of necessity. My big thing is, like, comparing them to a lot of the other teams in this division, they're the outlier because, like, besides Masataka Yoshida, like, there's really nothing of substance for them. And, like, I don't even know why Netflix is even following this team this year. Just because, like, I see a mediocre baseball team, and I feel like Fenway needs to make the change, but they're not going to. So that's where I see the AL East standing up for the time being. Moving over to the Central, at the number 1 position, I have, of course, your Minnesota Twins. Now, here's the thing. Call me a biased homer, but I feel like the Twins, out of everyone in this division, have the roster. True, they did shed a little payroll. You know, Michael A. Taylor is gone. Jorge Polanco was traded off to Seattle. You know, they lost Sonny Gray. They lost Donovan Solano. I do still think that they are the team to beat in the Central, just because you think about it. Their hitters, Buxton is coming back full term. Correa is healthy. Royce Lewis is healthy. You have guys like Eddie Julian, Brooks Lee, Austin Martin, and so many young guys who are looking to make that immediate splash on this team on the hitting side. Also with pitching, you have guys like Lopez, Ryan, you know, Paddock is going to be making his injured return back. You know, the main question is who's going to get Sonny's spot in the rotation. My personal vote is Bailey Ober, but you know, we don't know essentially. It's going to be interesting to see with the Twins this year, but I do still think that they are going to be the team to really be gunning for in this division. Number 2, I have the Detroit Tigers. You know, here's the thing. The Tigers, I feel like, are an impressive bunch this year. Just because, you know, I think last year they warmed up very late into the season, and I feel like they have the pieces to really make a bigger jump than they were last year. Because I believe they were 4th last year in the division. I do think that they can take that next step into being a complete team. It really banks on can some of the younger guys like Green and Torkelson really compete, which you never know. So that's my stance. I don't follow the Tigers a lot, but that's just how I view them going into this year. Starting at number 3, I have the Cleveland Guardians. You know, here's the thing. Like, I feel like their offseason, they weren't as active as I think they should have been. I do feel like they maybe should have traded off Shane Bieber. But, you know, that's just me, just because I feel like he needs a fresh change of scenery, and I feel like he's not getting anywhere in Cleveland. But they didn't, and all that they really do, my guess is their game plan is similar to Minnesota's, is where they're going to have a lot of their younger guys really develop and gel to try and see if they can compete with the Twins, which last year they had a very tough regression, and I don't really know if they can, unless they can really kick butt in the spring training cycle and get back, I don't really see it. Coming in at number 4 in the AL Central, I have the Royals. Now, here's the thing. Like, I'll admit that Bobby Witt Jr., very talented player. He's going to be the cornerstone piece for the Royals going forward. My main issue is the rest of the roster. To me, it seems like they are getting a bunch of one-year reclamation projects and hoping to compete, when that's not always sustainable. You know, Twins have learned a lot from this. They used to do that a ton back in the day, but realistically, that strategy never works. So I feel that they really need to hope on prospect development, but other than that, like, I don't see the Royals. I think their ceiling is 3rd in the division, and that's about it. So there's my stance on the Kansas City Royals. But hey, at least you guys got the Chiefs, so there's that to look forward to. And rounding up the number 5 spot is the Chicago White Sox. Now here's the thing, like, the White Sox, they purged everything last offseason, and Tim Anderson was just the beginning. I just feel like this is not a good team going into this year. I really feel that the White Sox are just going to be looking to get top draft picks, or that Jerry Reinsdorf sells the team. Realistically, like, the White Sox are years away from truly competing. And I feel like it's the start of another long rebuild. So buckle up, Chicago. You guys are gonna need it. Moving over to the AL West, I have at the number one position the reigning, defending, undisputed world champions, the Texas Rangers. That's the thing with the Rangers team last year that won it all. It was not only a team, like the only piece they really lost this offseason was Aroldis Chapman and maybe Jordan Montgomery, depending on what he does in the next few weeks. But realistically, I feel like, you have your hitting core of guys like Mitch Garver and Jonah Heim behind the dish. You have Evan Carter, Adolis Garcia, Leody Taveras, Marcus Semien, Corey Seager. So many great hitters to really deal with this team, both in the infield and outfield. Pitching, obviously, the main issue is health because Jacob deGrom is made of glass, and Scherzer's while still effective, is kind of getting up there in the tooth. So that is a big question. But I feel like that, realistically, I feel the Rangers are looking to try and go back-to-back, and I don't know if they can, but I do see them as the easy favorite to win the AL West. Coming in at number 2 is the Houston Astros. They're brothers to I guess, the West, I want to say. I don't know Texas, so I've never been there. But realistically, the big thing with them this year is they added Josh Hader to their bullpen, which Hader's a beast, and I definitely think he's going to be a big... The Astros, I've always said for years, they have one of the best bullpens in all of baseball, and it continues to prove. Especially when you have a guy like Hader, who's sort of a very particular specialist. So there's that. Other than that, they still have their main core. They still have Jordan, they still have Altuve, Bregman, Tucker. I think the million-dollar question is this year is can they get back to another World Series? Because while they did win in 2017, they won in 2022, I believe. Yeah, 2022. The main question for them is how much do they have with this current core? Because there's a time and place for when the parades really stop and, you got to move on to the next chapter, especially in baseball. They have a ton of top prospects, but I feel realistically, the million-dollar question is how much more can you compete with this team? Because judging by their division, there's going to be a lot of people creeping up on them. So we shall wait and see on that front. My number 3 team is the Seattle Mariners. Now, here's the thing. I've always had a soft spot for the Mariners. They've been a team that's really been through a lot, similar to the Twins, especially since they haven't even won a title. Realistically, their main highlights are guys like that one game against the Yankees in the 90s with Ken Griffey Jr. and Ken Griffey Sr. But realistically, my thought is this. I think this is a wild card team. They got Jorge Polanco in the fold. I definitely think he's going to be a helpful piece for them. And they got a lot of other pieces this offseason. I think the main thing is, can they really get consistent enough? Because Julio Rodriguez is a very special talent. I feel like realistically, it's just consistency that you need. So I definitely think the Mariners will be decent this year, especially considering the next 2 teams in the bottom. My 4th place team is the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. See, this is what we call hitting rock bottom. It's true that they still have Mike Trout there, but the realistic issue is they lost their golden goose Shohei Ohtani. The fact that he's now miles down the road is a very just frustrating sight. Now you have to deal with the fact that you are back to the lab again, and I don't even know if that you can get out, because the main issue I see with this is Artie Moreno. I get it, he wants to win, but meddling in team affairs never works for teams. Realistically, I look at the team they built this year, it's not a good team. There's Anthony Rendon's comments, they have some nice pieces in Jared Walsh, Taylor Ward, and others, but realistically, this is a bottom-of-the-barrel team, and it's sad because Mike Trout's going to go down as one of the greatest players of all time, but was constantly handicapped due to ownership meddling and just gray area BS, which is unfortunate. My bottom of the barrel team in the AL West is the Oakland Athletics, or Las Vegas Athletics as they're soon to be called. Realistically, what else can you say? They're still just sandbagging until they can move to Las Vegas next year. Personally, I'm with the Oakland fans. Sell the team. Team is my message to John Fisher if he's by any ways listening to this. I'm sorry, I don't like to give my stance on stuff like this, but come on, dude. You're ripping away a franchise from a city that's, I get, they can't pay for the stadium, but realistically, you're doing this to yourself, because now it's to the point where the A's faithful, they want nothing to do with you. Heck, even when players are calling you out, that's an alarming issue. It's like, man, it's frustrating. A's fans, I'm with you here. I want that guy to sell more than ever, but sadly, I don't think it's going to happen, and it seems like the move to Vegas is inevitable. So, in the meantime, I'll pour one out for you and continue to spread my message until the day I die. So, here's to that, A's fans. Moving over to the the National League, starting in the East, my number one team there is the Atlanta Braves. It's clear that they really built this team to be a long-term, consistent contender, and I do feel the Braves are that. I'm sorry, I said the A's because they were the last team. The Braves, I feel with Ronald Acuna, Sean Murphy, Matt Olson, Austin Riley, Ozzie Albies, a lot of these players, I feel like that they're going to be the team to really be chasing in the NL East, especially because their main move this offseason was acquiring Chris Sales from Boston. I understand that Chris Sales has had injury concerns, but realistically, I feel like the best thing you're bringing him in for is to be a veteran for guys like Spencer Strider, Bryce Elder, who, last season they got just wrecked against the Phillies in the divisional round. So I feel like you need a veteran voice to get in their ears and just really give them guidance, especially a guy who's been in those big games before. So that's where I think the Braves are really heading going into this year. At my number 2 spot, I have the Philadelphia Phillies. Realistically, the Phillies, I feel, their strategy is live and die by the home run ball. They are realistically a very good baseball team. They have guys like Bryce Harper, Trey Turner, Kyle Schwarber, Nick Castellanos. I'm trying to think of who else they have at the top of my head. Brandon Marsh, I think, is still back in the fold. So, they got some guys who can rake at the dish. And overall, all their pitching staff, while both that and the bullpen I feel are a little bit lighter, I do feel that Philly is going to be hosting another playoff game at Citizens Bank in Philly, just because of the fact that, that place, I agree with people, that place is not where you want to play, and Philly fans are nuts. So they're definitely, sadly, well, it's sad, it is probably the reality of what's going to happen. Coming in at the number 3 spot, I have the Miami Marlins. Here's the thing, they shocked a lot of people last year, when they kind of squeaked into the wild card spot over the Mets and Padres. But realistically, I think the Marlins are a very good team this year. Jazz, they got Jazz Chisholm, they have Luis Ariz, they just added Tim Anderson and Nick Gordon as bats. I do feel that even though they lost Jorge Soler, I do think both those guys can really make up for the lack of production in terms of hitting power. As far as pitching, I do know that Sandy Alcantara is out long-term with an injury, but I also look at it this way. That place is a pitcher's university. They produce more top pitchers than anyone can imagine. So realistically, I do feel that the Marlins are going to be a team that's sort of in the wild card race this year, which is shocking to say, but hey, more power to them, I guess. Coming in at the number 4 spot, it is the New York Mets. Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm not going to do my stupid voice. Anyway, here's the thing, Mets, like, I cannot be sold on you this year. Last season was a massive disaster where you threw all this money at great players for them to just crash and burn horrifically. You know, I get at least the positive this year is Edwin Diaz hasn't gotten injured, and I do feel that realistically he's going to be a big help this year, especially in the bullpen. But I feel like I can't be sold on the Mets. I get Steve Cohen probably wanting to go more for the build from within approach, but realistically, I don't know with the Mets. Like, I can't be sold on them until they can break out of their stale narratives. That's my only take with the Mets right now, okay? So, you may hate me, Queens, but you can't escape your true reality, sadly. And finally, coming in 5th place is the Washington Nationals. It sucks that in 2019 this team won the World Series looking more like just a fluke, but realistically, what do you want them to do? Like, they're in the middle of trying to sell the team, the Lerner family is, and overall, I think realistically, they're just trying to see if any prospects can stick while they're trying to wait while they're still trying to figure out what to do next, you know. And I keep stuttering over my words, I apologize, but realistically, Nationals, I'm sorry, but it looks like it might be another year of just kind of prospect watching and waiting for the next steps towards greatness, I guess. Moving over to the NL Central. At number 1, I have the Chicago Cubs. Now, here's the thing. I actually like what the Cubs offseason a lot. You know, Cody Bellinger's back in the fold. Shota Imaga for the bullpen. You know, while they did lose Marcus Stroman again, I do feel that Justin Steele is a perfect candidate to be their next ace, and I do feel like they have some great pieces in Seiya Suzuki and more that are ready to take the next step. Realistically, do I see them as a World Series contender? No, but I do think the Cubs have a positive outlook and will definitely be looking to gun for something this year. Even because realistically, if they didn't collapse last year, they would have been in the playoffs. But they didn't, and thus it was the Brew Crew's turn in the division. Coming in at number 2, I have the Cincinnati Reds. You know, here's the thing. Last year, the Reds were very, very good. Ellie De La Cruz captivated the hearts and minds of millions of Americans everywhere. Where, you know, they had guys like Matt McClain and Spencer Steer come up. You know, they had some great revelations in the pitching staff. Like Hunter Green has established himself as their ace, and I feel Alexis Diaz is one of their better closers, but I think realistically they're kind of not ready yet. I do think like they'll be significantly better this year, but I don't think they're a playoff team just yet. If they can prove some consistency, that thought may change, but overall I feel that the Reds are definitely going to be one of the sleeper teams going into this year. My number 3 team in the NL Central is the Pittsburgh Pirates. Now, I know based off their past reputation so far, they've suffered back-to-back collapses that have been brutal after starting out hot, but I think this is a year where the Pirates are going to take a big step forward. Just because, you know, Brian Hayes and Gavin Triolo were raking last year at the plate. You know, they had a lot of great guys. You know, Andrew McCutchen, I believe, is back in the fold just because they want him to break that milestone. But overall, I do think the Pirates will be decent this year. Not a serious threat yet, but I think once they get Paul Skeens, their top prospect, up, they could be a very interesting team to watch. But, you know, hey, at least here's the thing. It's way better than having to watch a Steelers game, Pirates fans. So, there's that. Coming in at number 4, I have the St. Louis Cardinals. Now, I know people are high on this team, but realistically, I don't know what I think they needed to make major shakeups this offseason, and they really didn't. Because, both Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado are here. Well, Adam Wainwright is gone. Their best solution is replacing him with Sonny Gray, which I love Sonny Gray, but I think realistically he's got a warning tag just because he's in his early 30s, or his mid 30s, I should say. But other than that, there's really nothing besides their young core and everything else. But I don't know. And now that I say this, watch that they just not pull a Nosferatu and go all the way to the World Series, because that's how it works with the Cardinals. And in the number 5 position, I have the Milwaukee Brewers. Now, I hate doing this because I've actually been someone who is fortunate enough to see Miller Park. It's a beautiful stadium, but I think realistically, the product on the field for the Brew Crew this year is not looking good. Well, true, they got Rhys Hoskins, but I think realistically, you also got to look at it this way. The fact that they traded off Corbin Burns is a huge, huge problem. Well, here's the thing. I like DL Hall. I feel like he's going to be a great addition to their bullpen. I don't know if Milwaukee has enough like they have in years past, and that's a huge problem. So I think that realistically, this is going to probably be the first rebuild year outlook for the Brewers, and I expect that they may be a heavy seller come July and August. So I wish I could help you out, Brewers fans, but you might be able to pick one game up over the Twins, because that's how it always works. Now moving over to the NL West. At number 1, I have what would be dubbed the champions of the offseason, the Los Angeles Dodgers. It's no secret that the Dodgers were hog wild this year with spending. They got Shohei Ohtani, they got Tyler Glass now, they got Yoshinobu Yamamoto from Japan. They got all these different pieces. I feel like that realistically, they're going to be the big question for them is come playoff time, can they get the job done? Because you look at their track record. Last year, lost in the wild card. Year before, lost in the divisional. Before that, lost in the championship series to the Braves. The big thing that they got to prove is postseason success, not regular season success. And do I think they can do it? I don't know. But here's the thing: they got to get it done, or else they're going to be wasting Shohei Ohtani's career. Coming in at the number 2 position, I have the team that was the runner-up in this year's World Series, the Arizona Diamondbacks. Here's the thing, the Diamondbacks, I feel that even though they weren't a huge team that was spending this offseason, they're still not going anywhere. Because you looked at a lot of the team, a lot of it was their young studs, In terms of hitting, Corbin Carroll, Ketel Marte, Christian Walker, all guys who are still very dominant postseason threats. Pitching, I feel that Zach Allen is still gonna be their low-key steal, and I still also do expect Brandon Pfaadt to have a breakout year, just because I feel he got hot last year, and I feel like he wants to prove to people that he can be another contributor to this team going forward. So that's where I think that they'll stack up, and I do think that it works out in their favor. At the number 3 spot, I have the Padres. Now, here's the thing. I first want to extend my condolences to the Padre fans listening, just because they lost their owner this season, and that was tough because he was committed to winning a championship, and sadly, it just old age can be a hard pill to swallow, and it's just a sucky situation. But my condolences, and I really am pulling for you guys. But overall this year, I don't know if the reason why I have them in the middle is because I don't know if they have enough to break through. Because here's the thing. They have Tatis, Machado, Ha-Sung Kim, who I love, Cronenworth, Xander Bogaerts. They lost Juan Soto, but I feel like he was going to be going every way. And they did get some nice pieces for him. But I think realistically, you also got to look at the fact that, ownership now is up in limbo. And do they shed payroll? I hope they don't, because I feel like there's some guys on here that you got to keep around, like Joe Musgrave. He's a local guy. Like, I don't think he's your star ace. I don't think a guy like him you can lose. So that's my takeaway. But overall, I'm hoping that the Padres can take the next step forward, but sadly, I don't know if they can. So, to be determined, I guess. Coming in at number 4, I have the San Francisco Giants. Now, here's the thing. Realistically, the Giants, like, my issue with them is this. You know, I look at the team, like, true, they got Jorge Soler. They got, the top Korean player on the market. I just don't know if they have enough, because it seems like they're just thinking they're competitive, but when realistically they're not. Because I look at a lot of the other teams, like, they're stacked. Like, even the Padres, you can mock the Padres for a lot of reasons. They are a stacked ball club, and I know Bob Melvin could probably help get this team better, but I don't see it. I really don't. So I think it's another year where the Giants are just kind of directionless this year, but maybe they prove me wrong, maybe they don't. Still to be determined. And finally, coming in last, I have the Colorado Rockies. It's no secret that ownership doesn't care for this group for this team whatsoever. They just care of filling up the ballpark. Like, you know, here's the thing. You look at their roster. Chris Bryant, who's dealt with injuries, you know, they have no... Well, I like Nolan Jones. Like, you can't just rely on one piece to take you anywhere. Like, realistically, the Rockies are a very bad team, and I don't think that anything is going to help them this year, other than the fact that, you know, maybe the Broncos open up training camp a little bit early, so there's that. Regardless, at this point, we are officially at the end of this episode, and I got one thing left to say before we end it off here. For those wondering, I said play ball. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you really enjoyed this episode. I hope to have more episodes coming soon. And until next time, we will see you. Peace!